here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned, immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week, it's going to be the turn of the musician and artist. It's the one and only Moritz R, who I spoke to very recently to find out more about life, love, poetry and all that other groovy stuff. The band formed in the late 70s and have been sort of off and on ever since. But they have got a new album out which is titled Take It Easy. I will put a link in the notes below so you'll be able to click on it and work out who I'm really talking about, and yes, a bit more about information about the band and the artist and all the other stuff. Anyway, with no more ado, we'll get down to the interview. So after several minutes of interesting but casual chat, we get down to the exciting subject of the early formative years. Moritz, it's over to you.
Well, that was obviously a bit earlier, but I'm surprised. If you were born 1964, you must have been very young to get into this glam rock, because that was in the early 70s, as I remember.
Yes.
For me, it was like I got into music like in 1967, 66, 67, and mostly by listening to the Top 20 show, the British charts, because I lived in the British zone of Germany. And we got on every Saturday, we got the Top 20 show, and that was where I got in touch with pop music.
Right, blimey. Was that in Berlin, by the way?
No, that was in Celle near Hanover in Lower Saxony, which was the British zone.
Right. This is all a political sort of lesson, isn't it? I'm slightly not sure. What was the British? Just so I'm not sort of guessing and then pretending I understand. What's the British zone?
Yeah, Germany after the war, Germany was parted into 4 zones. The East Germany was the Russian zone, Northern Germany was the British, Southern Germany the Americans, and somewhere in the southwest there was the French zone. So, and the British and the Americans also, they had their own radio for the soldiers that were stationed there. And the British radio was called BFBS, British Forces Broadcasting Service. And so I got initiated by British music, unlike people I know who grew up in Munich or Frankfurt. They were initiated by American music, which was quite different, actually.
Yes, well, I would imagine. I guess it would have been. So you got all of the stuff like the Kinks and the Who and the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, beat music it was called at that time. Yeah.
The beat scene. And were you going through? Because I mean, 67. I think you mentioned 67. I mean, that was the kind of the summer of love in the UK. Well, that was the UK and in America. I mean, they had the 14-hour Technicolor Dream at Ali Pali in London, and then San Francisco Golden Gate Park had the Gathering of the Tribes with the Grateful Dead and Timothy Leary. So was there a countercultural sort of scene happening in your neighborhood at that stage?
I was 11 years old and obviously a bit young for a summer of love. And Celle is a very small town, and and there was no summer of love. But through the local record shop and through BFBS, we got at least in touch with contemporary music outside of Germany, and that was my defining years, so to say.
Yes, well, absolutely. And then, as I said, because you were mentioning sort of, I suppose at that stage, like I mentioned, the early glam period, there was, I mean, those kind of songs, I think Alice Cooper's School's Out, which all seemed very exciting. And then, Blockbuster by The Sweet. And then there was, Crazy Horses by the Osmonds. I suppose, if one was just listening to radio or hearing music, they were just great songs, weren't they? Blockbuster.
Yeah, I mean, most of my friends were very much into glam rock. I wasn't that much. In the 70s, I began developing my own taste and, like emancipating from pop music, listening to music beyond charts music. And actually in the 70s, I was listening to a lot of jazz. That was my my main focus, which included, of course, people like Frank Zappa and other forms of jazz.
Did you go through a Miles Davis or Weather
Yeah,
Report?
exactly. Meister, everybody, and John Coltrane. I was listening to. I had a friend in Munich. I lived in Munich then, and Munich actually was a great place for jazz music. They had like four really good jazz places where you could hear all these international performance live. Sometimes, very close in close contact in small clubs, and also the American embassy had jazz programs. So it was a great time for jazz in Germany.
Yes. And did people like John Peel come on your radar? Sort of, was he broadcasting at that stage? I mean, he had the Perfume Garden, but I think that was more the late 60s than the 70s.
Yeah, that came with punk and new wave. In 1978, I opened a gallery in Wuppertal near Düsseldorf, and we got in touch with all these new wave bands, and it changed my whole musical world. So at that time, also John Peel was becoming to be known for playing this kind of music.
Yes. And were your parents, did they direct you in any shape or form, culturally?
No, they didn't. But as a matter of fact, my father was into jazz as well. My father was a hobby painter, and he was a doctor. But when he came home in the afternoon, often he would go into his studio, turn on the tape recorder, and play jazz music and paint. So I was got in touch with jazz at an early age as well.
Yes, how interesting. Yes, there you go. And did you, I mean, having an older brother or sister is often quite a good sort of direction in music. My brother was
No,
7 years.
I was the oldest brother.
You were the oldest, so you had to lead the way at that stage. So when you got to sort of 75, you'd have been roughly, I'm doing the maths here, were you about 16 and about to leave school at sort of 75? Was this
75, I was already 19.
Oh,
20.
my maths is completely out.
That was my last school years in Munich, and then I moved to Wuppertal and Düsseldorf. So, at the end of the 70s, I moved to Düsseldorf, and that's where all the things happened that started my own musical and artistic career, because Düsseldorf at that time was the place in Germany where it all happened, mainly in a club called Ratinger Hof. You may have heard about it. All the English punk bands, they all played there, and the new German punk bands, they played there, and it was an exciting time, actually. It was around the art academy where Josef Beuys was still a professor. He was a very well-known figure at that time, and so it made Düsseldorf the best, I think the most interesting place for art and music in Germany at the end of the 70s.
Yes, that's interesting, isn't it? Did the not sort of so much music, but there was a lot of terrorism going on in the 70s, wasn't there? We had the IRA, you had the Baader Meinhof. Did that sort of come onto your radar at all? Of
course, yes. I mean, me and many of my friends were politically active. We were all leftist in diverse, little groups, little fractions of communist and socialist and anarchist parties. And of course, everybody knew the RAF, and it was discussed. But I never got into this kind of political activism that included violence or something. So.
No.
At the end of the 70s, it was over for me. I mean, punk sort of cured me from these dogmatic political views, and it was like the real self freeing and anarchism, real anarchism, personal anarchism. Freeing your own mind sounded more interesting than trying to free the world.
Yes, well, it's absolutely. This is what we strive to achieve. Did you? So, how did your musical world? So, during that kind of 70s period, you mentioned jazz, but before that, we had this sort of heavy rock period with Deep Purple and Black Sabbath. Then we had prog rock with Yes and Genesis, and then sort of like the West Coast sound of America, like the Eagles and Crosby, Stills and Nash and Young and Joni Mitchell. So how did you sort of navigate into your mid-70s and then beyond? And I just wondered what it was that sort of steered you into the direction of electronic music.
Yeah, it happened like overnight. I mean, I wasn't, as I said, I was mostly into jazz, and suddenly punk came. I mean, there was this film by a German director who the film was called Punk in London, and it played in a local theater in Wuppertal, which was kind of unusual because it was a total underground film played in the cinema. And we went there, and a week later we were all punks and had safety pins in our leather jackets and everything. And yeah, a whole new world started. And many of these musical phenomena from the 70s I discovered later. I mean, uh, of course, my musical interests got very diverse during the 80s and the 90s, and I discovered a lot of music from the past,
Yes, absolutely. Then so what was your sort of first gig or gigs that you went to at this stage? Was it Dusseldorf that you had started gigging, or was it before then?
Yeah, it was in Düsseldorf and around Düsseldorf, and I mean, I'm a total dilettante in music. I mean, I started making music because a friend of mine, Kurt Dahlke, who is also a band member of Der Plan, um, put his Korg MS-20 synthesizer. It stood in our gallery for a few weeks, and I played around with it, and all these sounds came out of this mysterious instrument. And at that point, I decided I want to do that. And then we started like children. We just played with the instruments that we had. We had a few Italian electronic keyboards, and we just started making music without any knowledge or education. We just played on it and made songs, and that's how it all started.
Yes. So you had the art gallery as well as the band at this stage, is that
Yes,
right?
yes.
Blimey, you were spreading yourself over both genres at this point, weren't you? So what was
Yeah,
your
I am a painter. I mean, that's my first profession, and I always thought music is just my hobby. But at that time, if you had a record, then you really got well known. I mean, having a record was a big deal at that time. So although I consider myself just a dilettante in music, I became more famous for the music that I made than with the paintings.
Yes, absolutely. And at that stage, when did you start to record and go into the studio to sort of put together your first single and then first album?
Well, our living room was our first studio. We just recorded the stuff that we played on the instruments, and later when we moved to Düsseldorf, the studio developed, and more instruments came, and mixing desks and everything, and step by step we put all the money that we made with our records into the studio. We never took things for our private life. I mean, I made money with my paintings, and so everything was put into the studio. So like in 2, 3, 4 years, we had a pretty decent studio. Then later we bought the first emulator, the keyboard, and so step by step we increased our equipment and our skills, as I would say. I mean, just by learning by doing, I would I would say. And actually we called this concept jerry rig. Our first album is also called jerry rig. That's the term. It comes from the American English, and means to fix something with not non-professional fixing of things, and that was like the motto for our music, like dilettantes making music with whatever they got into their hands.
Yes. And did you start becoming more aware of people like Throbbing Gristle and Laurie Anderson had that sort of first, I don't know if it was her first single, but, Oh Superman came along, and there was sort of just some interesting new sounds that were appearing both in the charts and then also on the indie scene. Did they come onto your radar at that stage?
Yes, Throbbing Gristle actually was one of my first influences, and I also met Genesis in London, and I also met him in Germany when we played on the same gigs. And also the Residents, obviously, were one of my influences, and I also got in contact with them personally. So I mean, it became clear that there's a little international scene of musicians who are not really professional musicians, because none of them are. Genesis isn't, and the Residents were not. That make interesting, weird music. It was like a little group all over the world,
Yes, absolutely. No, it was just quite interesting. And then actually in 79, there was a band called Rima Rima who only lasted for sort of 8 months, but they were the first band on 4AD records, and they featured various people, including Marco Peroni and also Dorothy Max Pryor, who went into Throbbing Gristle for a while, as well as Gary Asquith, who was in... Yes, Renegade Soundwave, and I think he had some connections with that band called Malaria as well. So, yes, there was a lot starting to develop at that point in the late
Well,
70s.
the bands or musicians that influenced me the most from England were, of course, Daniel Miller with his different projects, like Silicon Teens was a pretty funny record. And also the first single by Human League, Being Boiled, that was an absolute game changer for me to hear that.
Yes, well, the Sheffield scene was quite prolific, really, because I know Cherry Red Records has brought out a compilation a few years ago. I think it was the 3 CD box set, and it's kind of interesting that there's very few guitars and the sound of jingly jangly indie pop. It's quite electronic, really, at that stage. And were you playing live at all? Did you sort of go and perform out there in galleries or in small clubs?
Yeah, I mean, after we had our album out, which was for the kind of music that we made, for the scene that we belong to, and to have an album was even better than to have a single only, which we got a lot of articles, and we got quite known then. And we played all over Germany, but also we played in Japan, in Hungary, in France, and so we got around pretty good.
Yes, my God. And then at that stage, you got the debut album, and this is on your own record. Was that on your own record label, the debut album?
That's the next thing. We had our own label, because the major companies at that time, they really had no interest in this weird stuff. And so we were one of the independent labels of Germany. And we had some interesting acts there. Andreas Dorau was on our label. Holger Hiller was on our label. So it was also an important part of our lives until, I would say, 1983, when I decided I don't want to do the label anymore and want to concentrate on the band or on my paintings. And I moved to Hamburg then, and lived in Hamburg for 10 years.
Right. Did that mean that you were no longer part of the band?
No. The band kept on to exist. But we made records. I went to Düsseldorf. I stayed in Düsseldorf for some weeks, and then we made the next album. But I lived in Hamburg, actually.
Right. My God, And when did John Peel sort of pick up on the band? Was that during this period as well?
Yeah, that was very early. I mean, I can't recall a certain year, but it was all in the very early 80s.
Yes. Did you start sort of developing into serialistic scenic design as well? This is
Yeah,
what.
I did all the record covers, and also we were known for having stage design. We were using painted mask and painted backgrounds, and that was our thing, you know. We were famous actually for that. We were like the only band who did that to that extent. So that was my painter's art that I brought into the band, and actually I liked that a lot. I liked to use my art for such a project, to get it on a stage and to print it on record covers. That's a very nice way to make visual arts, I think.
Well, yes. And so were your live concerts, were they quite a immersive experience then? When people came along, did they know that they were going to sign up for sort of an evening of music and sort of, yes, immersive art? I think that.
They knew something special would happen, and we always had something special. We had a show that was completely in a black box, and everything you saw the whole evening was painted masks and costumes and backgrounds. But also we had a friend of us who was a computer freak. Long before there were Apple computers or anything, he was fiddling with electronics, and he built a net of little light diodes. What's the English word for that? Little lamps, so to say. And it was a huge net, and he could program it so that the lamps would light up, and he could create moving objects, and that was we were hanging that before in front of our stage, so nobody had ever seen something like that at that time. So I mean, I
Quite
guess
the.
that it helped a lot to make us more well known.
Well, yes, and you were very prolific during this period, weren't you? You were bringing out albums virtually every year. There was no slowing down. And how did you?
Nah, there were actually the breaks between the albums were getting larger, but I mean that was the freedom we took for ourselves, because all of us had also different jobs. I was a painter. Kurt Dahlke, Pirolator, he had his solo projects. He was also a producer for other bands, and Frank Fenstermacher, he ran the label, and he also had other things that he did. So we sort of we kept the music commercial free, so we didn't have to do, you know, other bands they have to uh, uh, put out their new album, but we could do it when we wanted or when we had ideas. I mean, when we thought now it's time for a new album. So
Yes, God,
that's
that's quite interesting.
what
And were you sort of caught up in, that period? I mean, there was bands like Scraping Fetus Off the Wheel, wasn't there? Which was a toe-tapping classic of our time. And then there was, and also kind of films that started to appear as well. I mean, there was the David Lynch films,
yeah.
and then there was like it's things like, I don't know, Wings of Desire, Betty Blue, Blue Veil, all that kind of stuff. Did that
Yeah.
all sort of feed into your work at this stage?
Yeah, in 1979, I sold my car, and at that time, a British company called Laker, they offered really cheap flights to America, and I took the chance. And in 1979, I went to Los Angeles, and I met some people there who I had met in Düsseldorf, and I could stay at the house, so it was easy for me. And I actually I saw Eraserhead in a movie theater in Los Angeles in 1979, and before the movie, they were showing the videos by the residents, which were also really weird. And at that evening, when I went into that cinema and when I came back, I thought my life had changed really. That was a whole new door that was opened up.
Yes, well, no, that was one of those that we used to have on cinemas in, I don't know, in the UK, late night on a Friday was those kind of classic cult films that one felt that for various reasons, wanted to go and see, and it always felt exciting as well. And they were quite quirky or quite different. And
Yeah.
I suppose during that period, being out of the mainstream and on an indie label was terribly important. I mean, when a band signed to a major, it seemed to make massive news, like Sonic Youth signing to somebody was like, oh my God, they've sold out. Do we still like the band? But I don't think anyone would understand the complexities of those little things nowadays. But
Yeah,
at the time,
we had a very good contacts with Daniel Miller, who also who put some of our bands on his label on Mute Records, like DAF and Andreas Dorau, and I always had a good contact with him. I also I made a birthday painting for Depeche Mode that Daniel Miller ordered from me. I,
blimey,
I did the two single record covers for Depeche Mode,
which ones were they?
Meaning of Love and See You.
Crikey, alrighty, that must have been
The
quite.
second and third single, as I remember.
Yes. And were you kind of interested in any of the kind of German bands that were happening during that period, like Blixer and there was, oh God, I always forget the name of the band actually, or mispronounce it terribly, or people like Exmar Deutschland. Did they sort of interest you at all?
Yeah, I mean, like in the beginning, like at the end of the 70s, we all felt like we belonged together and we were one scene. But as the years went by, everybody went a different path, and I was not so much interested musically in what bands like Einstürzende Neubauten also did. I was more interested in really real music, electronic. Um, yeah.
Yes, and during that sort of period, I remember John Peel sort of introducing us to people like, well, it was people like Public Enemy, and there was a label called Street Sounds put together by Morgan Khan, and that had all that early hip hop, but then that morphed into things like that Detroit house music, and then there was bands like the ambient sounds of the Orb and a guy called Gerald and 808 State and Adamski. Did you find any of that sort of dance music at all interesting, or did that
Yes,
sort of?
actually, that I mean the 80s, when the 80s developed, um, new wave developed into industrial, and it all became kind of dark. And I like from the middle of the 80s, I really didn't like that music so much anymore. So when house music came, Chicago house, and it really saved me. I mean, that was the new door that opened up, and I listened to all these house pop tunes that were available at the end of the 80s.
Yes, well, there was the sort of the big kind of production with the piano. I think that was Italian house, and then there was the Balearic beat scene as well,
Yeah.
which I don't know. It all seemed very interesting. Did bands
But
like?
but but also at that time, um, I got interested in much older music, and one of the very big things I discovered was exotica music, things like Martin Denny and Les Baxter, and that also influenced me a lot.
Because
Which
I
was
think sort of coming a little bit later in the 90s, those soundtracks. Did you say erotica sort of music?
exotica. It's called
Exotic.
exotic. I never heard the term exotica.
There was the well, was that kind of looked upon? Was that genre slightly would have been looked upon as being slightly naff once, but then became kind of quite intriguing? And was
Yeah, it
that the?
was rediscovered. I mean, the all it was actually from the 50s, music from the 50s, and the entire easy listening music that was overlooked for decades were rediscovered or were discovered in the 90s, and it turned into lounge music. Lounge music was what came out of it, and that was which I would say I identified most with. But I also in the early 90s I also listened to hip hop quite a lot, because hip hop was really inventive. What was like the most inventive music at that time. So that was also part of my schedule. But yeah.
Yes, well, I do remember those compilations, and I think there must have been clubs opening in London, and so we started to sort of listen to them and have them on in the background, because it seemed to be, yes, when your parents might have listened to it back in the 60s and
Yeah,
70s, terribly like, oh my God, this is terrible. And then,
it was considered terrible, but then it was rediscovered by, I think, Boyd Rice, if you know who he is. He was like the one who rediscovered the entire tiki culture. You have a Trader Vic's in London. You have a prime example of the original tiki Polynesian pop culture in London. Have you ever been to the Trader Vic's? It's a really interesting place.
no, I haven't. I'll make a note. I need to go there, don't I? I think, I don't know what year it was that came out, but I do remember during sometime in the 90s when Austin Powers came out, and that sort of embraced a certain, you know, vibe into a 60s vibe, but
Yeah,
with that kind of
yeah.
music. And then, and you know, to be honest, when I mentioned at the beginning my love of glam rock, I did also love Burt Bacharach and the Carpenters as well. And
Oh
when
yeah, I love Bacharach. This is one of
so
my
so
favorite
so that
composers.
was so that was not a guilty pleasure, because I don't really care, but I just thought the music and the lyrics were stunning. I just used to love listening to it. And then years later, I saw him when he did an album with Elvis Costello at the
Yeah.
Barbican, and it
The
was
thing is, the
stunning.
thing is, this music was always considered as embarrassing and not rock, and but it's actually really good music. It's really incredible compositions, incredible arrangements, and it's just, I think it's the best music of the 20th century, and that's why what I listen nowadays mostly. I mean, I think there are extremely many prime examples of really interesting music. So that was like the 90s for me. The late 80s and 90s, I discovered all this music that was overlooked from the past.
Yes, absolutely. Did that sort of alter your fashion sense as well? Did you sort of start to have a different style
Yeah,
yourself?
I got into tiki cultures in my paintings also. I did a lot of tiki paintings, and the thing was, as an artist, you have to care for who wants your art, who will buy your art. Is there an interest? And I saw this tiki scene evolving in the United States, and I thought, well, that's an interesting scene. I want to get into that, and yeah, I was
Yes.
quite successful in there. So today there are tens of thousands of people who are into tiki culture. New tiki bars have opened up. Tiki mugs are created, and people wear Hawaiian shirts and stuff. So
Were
yeah.
you influenced by that quote by Andy Warhol that said, "Making money is art and working is art, and good business is the best art"? Were
Well, of
you?
course, of course, he says things like that. Well, that's, I don't know. No, I wouldn't say provocative statements, but like that. But I, I think an artist has to make a living and has to make his mind up, and yeah,
Yes, absolutely. I think, and I mean, on that political front, we'd had the Thatcher years of the 80s, and it all seemed rather grim at times. I'm sure some people were enjoying it, but it felt like on the left, you know, we had Red Wedge and Rock Against Racism, and then there's the poll tax, and everyone got very upset about that. And then the 90s came, and Thatcher, you know, resigned, and then we had the John Major years, and then New Labour, which I think kind of influenced the art quite a lot, because suddenly there was a sort of a sense of optimism. And then we had all those artists that started to appear, like Tracy Emin and Damien Hirst, and, you know, fashion designers. And there was a flamboyance, wasn't there, when Britpop came along. So how did you navigate your 90s? Because does the band split up in 92 at this stage?
Yeah, in 92 we split up. I mean we ended the project. I I worked a lot at that time with a German musician named Andreas Dorau. I don't know if you know him. I he had a contract with a major label, and they paid very well. And I did all the record covers for him and stage designs, and I also went on tour with him. So that was what I did practically. I did my paintings. I did jobs like that for other artists, and yeah, I tried to discover as much music of the past as I could. So in 1994, I'm 83, 1994, yeah, I moved to Munich, and I lived in Munich for 10 years. And there was an interesting scene there, which there was a bar that I got into DJing and stuff like that. That was my 19s, basically.
Yes. And what was your on the DJ front? What were you spinning at that stage? What was your sort of playlist?
I think all kinds of stuff. I'm really interested in all kinds of music. Although I have my preferences, things that I like most, but I can listen to anything, and I'm really glad that today with internet radio, you can really find music from all over the world and all genres, and it's really super interesting. I really can't get enough of it, and there are even some radio stations who play all kinds of eclectic music by themselves. Like, I don't know if you're into internet radio at all, but there's this radio station called Shirley and Spinoza, and I'm listening to that for years now, and it's an endless enjoyment.
Yes, my God. So your 90s and into the O years was in Munich. Then does the band reform again at this stage?
Yeah, I can explain that. I mean, at the beginning of the millennium, suddenly the bands from the early 80s were rediscovered by a new generation. Some
Yes.
bands just picked up the style, but also people came and asked, "What are you doing today? Would you like to go on tour with us?" And there's this quite famous DJ in Germany. His name is DJ Hell, and he literally asked us if we want to go on tour with him. And I mean. And to me, that sounded very interesting, and I wanted to do it. But the other two of the bands, they were not ready to do it. They had other band projects. So I formed a side project with two other guys from Berlin. I was
Yes.
living in Berlin at that time, and it was called Der Plan 4.0. And we made an album, and we went on tour, and we played some festivals, including Tokyo, and so that's kept that sort of kept their plan alive, although it was not the original formation of their plan. But later, when was that?
Was that 04?
That was 04, but later on we played. I got together with my former bandmates again, and we played a little gig on the 50th birthday of Andreas Dorau in Hamburg, and the Bureau B label, they were there too, and they came and said, "Hey, you guys, that was great, and why don't you make a new album?" And they talked into us until we finally agreed. And in when was it? 14? Was it 14 or later? A new album of their plan came out with the original formation.
What was that called? What was that album called?
That was called what was it called?
Is it
Unkapitulierbar.
Yes,
Unkapitulierbar.
that was 17 that came out.
Yeah, right. That was the first album after '92 with the original formation of the band, was recorded in Pyrolator's studio in Berlin.
Yes, and did you, when you were in Berlin? Because I've done an interview with quite a few people who have nestled in there. One of them called Mark Reeder, who's really was big on the techno front, and explained.
Yeah, he lives around my place. He's like he lives like 300 meters from my house.
Does he? Yes, I bet you can hear his music if you open the window.
Yeah, I meet him. I meet him in the supermarket quite often.
Yeah. Oh, what does he do? You compare bargains, compare diets as we all get older, and you need to worry about.
I mean, we are on. I never was so much into techno music, so I really don't know it very well. I don't know very many musicians of that genre, but of course I know what it is and I respect it. But Mark is located in a different genre than myself.
Yes. Did you see the film B movie Lust and Sound in West Berlin, 79 to 89?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh. Yes, it's doing the rounds. I think it came out quite a long time ago, like 10 years, but it's available from all good.
Yeah, I heard about it. Yeah, I know what it is.
Right.
But I didn't see it.
No, well, there you go. Put it on your Christmas list. So at this stage, 2017, you bring the album. Are you now located in Berlin, or have you...
Yeah.
Right.
Two of us live in Berlin, and the third one lives in southern Germany.
Right. So did that seem like a nice project to be doing that again with the original members?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we, without having planned it, suddenly live in the same city and not even very far away within Berlin, of course, made it an option. And now we are a band again.
Formed. Yes, and this came out on Bureau B Records, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So this is quite an eclectic label, isn't it? Quite an avant-garde?
Yeah, there are not many indie labels. I mean, for indie music. I mean, there are some independent labels for very specialized music, but this is something different. Like Cherry Red. Cherry Red seems to be the last big indie in England, and Bureau B or Tapete, it's the same. It's one of two. The other is called Staatsakt, and those are the two indie labels that we have here.
Yes, well, you're on the, James Last had an album released on this particular label as well, which...
Has he? Okay.
And Easy Beatles, a compilation, and all sorts of... Yeah, that seemed like it's kind of into the smooth or lounge scene as well, which is very strange.
Yeah, I think it's mostly... Yeah, Bureau B is re-releases of some krautrock bands, but mostly it's indie rock. So I would say.
Yes.
I mean, our new album, where we play easy listening versions of our most well-known songs, is a special project. It's what we wanted to do for a long time. And now we said, okay, let's do it. Let's just for the fun of it.
Well, absolutely.
That's our new album, which is out right now.
But absolutely, we'll get on to that. But then, did you create another gallery at this stage in Berlin? Did you?
No.
But you were painting.
I'm still painting, but. I don't work with galleries anymore. I mean, galleries. I used to work with indie galleries, but it doesn't make sense. They make an exhibition with you. They take half of the money, but nothing else happens. I mean, I can sell my paintings directly to the customer via the internet. Galleries only make sense if they are really famous galleries, and if they bring you to art collections and into museums, and if they really increase your prices to make make it worthwhile. I mean, giving half of the money away must have a reason, you know.
Well, yes, blimey, that is a massive. So the link on your Facebook page for this kind of site that you sell your work, that's just what you do online.
Yeah, I have my own webpage, and also my fiancée and me, we opened an online art gallery. It's called Chuck, where we sell art and music via our own platform. It's our own shop, and people can order there, and we send the stuff then to them.
Yes. So when did that develop? Because it's quite an interesting sort of very amazing website you've got here.
Yeah, we have been doing it for 3 years now, I think.
Right. So that was a sort of project that developed during the dreaded pandemic or post-pandemic.
Right, exactly. And my fiancée, she's an incredible programmer, so I couldn't do it myself. Actually, she programmed the entire website, so it seems to work mostly, and we regularly sell stuff there.
Well, I can see. That's amazing. And then you brought out your solo album, didn't you? You were the only
Yeah,
member.
I have a solo album. Yeah, on our Japanese label, the Kaoru is his name. He has a label in Japan, and he re-released all our records, and he has many other German bands on his label, and it's a fantastic label. And the records, I mean, he has sometimes he has better versions of our own records than our own. So
Yes, well, this often happens. Did you? Because one of my favorite songs on that KLF album was "Build a Fire." Did you do a remix of that, or did you do some artwork?
and no, it's not Build a Fire. I did a remix of what's it title again? There. It's
Because
not
it was
Build.
just because on your Discogs, you've got your page, and I just noticed you got the album that came out in 21, and then in 05 there was KLF against V the Glove or V yourself. Oh, Make It Rain. Did you do Make It?
You know, the thing is that there was a project. There were maxi singles and remixes, and they put the wrong title on the record.
Oh, slack. Bunch of hippies. Real, never mind. Oh dear. So that was good. But that was something. Who got in touch with you for that project?
But I can't remember. It was a guy from Berlin. But that remix is on my solo album.
Right.
So you can find it on my solo album. Also on my solo album is something which is very rare and special. I have made the only legal official German version of a Frank Zappa song, and this is also on the solo album.
Fantastic. My God. What's that particular track so I can go and locate it later?
The original track by Frank Zappa is called oh God, my memory of titles is really terrible.
Yeah, it is Sunday afternoon. We're all a bit tired.
You can find it on Discogs and wherever.
Yes, I will try. I mean, it's
Let's make the water turn black is the original Frank Zappa title, but the title on my solo album is different.
Yes, there you go. And then when did you start working on this new album, which is Save Your Software? This is the one that's just come out, isn't it?
Right. That was a project we had made in 1989, and we wanted to put it on stage with real robots, but it turned out to be too costly and complicated, and so we had already finished the entire music for that show, but we couldn't really bring it on stage. So the tapes, some went into some cupboard and got forgotten. And during the pandemic, we we went through all our old files and we really rediscovered this entire project, and we thought, hey, the music is not so bad. We never put it on record, so why don't we bring it out now? And that's what we did. And the robot band that was called Fanux. That was like a alter ego for their plan. The name came from a Japanese company who that actually builds robot called Fanuk.
Right. God, that's yes, that was a very interesting little number. But the new album is Take It Easy. This is
Take
the
It
one.
Easy. That's a new album, and this is entirely. It's easy listening versions of our most well-known songs. And you know what, today you have to explicitly explain it's not done with AI, it's not made with AI, because people, when we put it out, people said, okay, we understand, you put your old music into some AI and it spit out these songs. No, it was entirely recorded from scratch.
Yes, God, yes, that's quite. Must be quite.
Really, you have to put a sticker on your artworks that says "not made with AI today," because everybody suspects it.
Have you had a dabble with AI on making music at all?
Did I have what?
Have you dabbled with AI
Have I tried it out?
Yes,
Yes,
that's what.
I have. Of course I have. I've tried it out, and it's it's kind of impressive, actually. I mean, I put some of my lyrics that had not made it into a real song. I put it in some of these softwares that are available on the internet, and it made some impressive songs. I mean, uh, especially what AI can do that couldn't be done with any other studio technique. It creates voices. It creates singing voices. That's really something.
Yes, quite weird, isn't it? Really, easy. So Take It Easy is. Did you say it's 10 tracks, which is
Yeah.
tracks that have been remastered or
No, it's completely recorded from scratch, rearranged. We had to write all the chords and notes. We had to write it down and arrange it, and so it's a really it's a new record with new songs, but the compositions are old songs.
Right, I've got you. And how do your process of bringing music together work between is it the three of you still?
It's mostly the two of us in Berlin, but we send our results to the guy in southern Germany, and he plays additional instruments or does some singing, and he does overdubs and sends it back to us, and then we do the final production. So it's mostly Kurt Dahlke and me that made this record.
Blimey, that's amazing. And then you did did you have about 9 test pressings that you were also selling as well? Did they?
I mean, it's like a crowdfunding, you know. But they were sold within a day, actually, for 99 euros.
Did you say they did?
Yeah, in one day they were sold out.
I guess it's going to be collector's items, isn't it, really? So there you go.
Yeah, it is.
So with this particular one, this is coming out October 2025. Will you be promoting it or playing any live dates on this?
No, we were probably not doing live dates, but we have a release party in November, on 16th of November, where we also show our Jahrplan film. You know, when we played in Japan in 1984, we made a video that was never really published. It was running in TV at that time 2 or 3 times, but then it never was really published. And we doing what's it? it was we improved the quality, and now we make a release party where we show the film
Fantastic.
on a cinema screen.
Blimey. So, yes, do you have some very dedicated, hardcore followers?
I guess, yes. I guess we have that. Yes.
So when is the your sort of party, the release party, going to happen? Have those dates come out?
November 16th in a cinema right next to my place and to Mark Reeder's place. It's a movie theater called Sputnik, and we do it there.
Fantastic. And if anyone wants to know more about the band, which is the best place? Because I find this takes ages, don't you? Often going from one social media platform site to another, or the person's own. So does the band have a website or?
We have a blog. It's jerryreek.com, and but you probably find it if you look for their plan. Also, we have a Wikipedia page. Maybe there should be some links too.
Yes,
but of course, in the social media platforms, we are on Instagram and Facebook and everything.
I've got it. Yes, you have got a blog actually. So is all the information going to be sort of put out there? Because
yeah.
So that will be it, actually. And what else are you planning for the rest of the year and into 2026? What other plans have you got at this stage?
Well, now it's selling the records. I mean, it starts tomorrow for myself. I mean, now the holiday is over, and by tomorrow I will be in my studio again and packing records into envelopes and sending them all over the world. But depending on the reaction we get, and we are pondering with plans to make a new single, actually, a new song.
And do you have, you were talking about packaging and sending them off. Have you got from your mailing list, or not your mailing list, but people that have bought the album, is that going kind of all over Germany or all over Europe or America as well?
We send records everywhere. We have many orders from the US, from England too, from Japan a lot, and
God, it's exciting times, isn't it, actually? And you've got your Bandcamp page, which doesn't have the new album on it. Will that be available on Bandcamp a bit later on?
I guess so, yeah, but it will be later on.
Right.
Now we want to sell the hardware. I mean the
hard copy.
The hard copies. And then later it will be available digitally also.
And that, dear listener, is the end of the interview. A massive thank you to Moritz for giving me the time for that. I know I've slightly mispronounced his name, but never mind. You'll be able to find out more about that in the link. Anyway, this has been the C86 show. David Eastaugh. If you want to contact me, you can on any of the social media platform sites. Do C86 show and you'll be able to find me. All these interviews have been archived on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean. It's true. Have a great week. Stay safe.